Hi, my friends. Welcome to Inside the Minds of Authors. I'm DC Gomez, your host, and also an indie author. I'm thrilled you're joining me today for another fun interview with a passionate author. We're going to kick off this show with an exciting reading, so let's get started.
Hello, listeners. My name is Shree, and I'm a writer, storyteller, and a speaker. I used to formerly be an IT pro, but I have changed my career in 2015 and started to write professionally, and I write for various genres. Now, before I tell you more about myself, I would like to read the first chapter of my last novel I published, and the name of the novel is Daffodil, Blooming Beyond the Season. The first chapter, Allow Me to Bloom. Almost 4 decades ago, the splendor of the virgin forest and the natural reserves of Bhagalpur district in Bihar, an eastern state of India, was awe-inspiring. The forest was endowed with rare specimens of trees, shrubs, medicinal plants, mammals, reptiles, and exquisite birds and insects. And that awesome coexistence was not only blessed upon the flora and fauna, but was also bestowed amongst the mankind. The state was once upon a time welcomed people from all countries and faiths and people speaking all different languages. It had a fair share of Hindus, Sikhs, and Muslims. They all dwelled in the same adjacent neighborhoods, maintaining peace and happiness. In its harmony thrived its innocence. But the impressive unity did not last forever. It was the last day of the Chhath Puja, one of the most important and auspicious festivals in Bihar. In the evening, people were out in colorful processions distributing the holy way and prasad after the prayers. Within minutes, a tumultuous ambush took over the entire state, disturbing the crowds and the lives of common people. People were in a state of shock. The markets were closing down and people were returning to the families as soon as they could. Several who could not make it to their home considered in their friends' homes. That was the initiation of the communal riots which started in Bihar for the ethnic cleansing of the Sikhs from the state by some radical groups which worked furtively so far and became active abruptly. The right was continuously exhibiting the aftermath all over the state. The repercussions were the worst in the Sikh-dominated towns, one of which was Bhagalpur, situated in the banks of the Ganges River. The exquisiteness of the state was incessantly disrupted. The rioters were running in the streets with rods and kerosene to set flames on the vehicles owned by the Sikhs. Thousands of huts and houses of the Sikhs were vandalized and destroyed. All shops and business ran by the Sikhs were being looted. Sikh communities seen everywhere and anywhere were being attacked. Only fires, smoke, and ashes could be witnessed miles after miles in the state which used to be once the most picturesque state of India. One of the prominent houses in the affected area belonged to Sikh origin Mr. Amarjit Singh, an extremely popular English teacher of the government boys' school. He lived with his wife, who was at an advanced stage of pregnancy at that time, and his parents. His wife, Shelley, gave birth to an adorable daughter a couple of weeks prior to the due date in the midst of the riots. Amarjit was elated by the arrival of his lovely daughter and was immensely hopeful that she would initiate the aura of the new beginning of blissful dawns in their disruptive lives. Hence, he named her daughter Daffodil, which signified the advent of the colorful and loving reason of spring. The world of the Singh couple took a different turn after the birth of Daffodil. They lovingly called her Daphne. Daphne took over their lives. She brought back the happiness and laughter which was missing in the family amidst the tense political situation. She became the apple of the eyes of her parents. She presented them with fresh dreams and new dimensions of being alive in the appalling disruptions of the state. Gradually, she grew and transformed into a lovely little girl under the guidance of her parents. The Singhs had a surreal feeling when Daffodil took her first steps, uttered her first words, smiled like a fairy, and gave them the world's best hugs. Soon she joined the play and then the nursery. When she was about to turn 4, Amarjit made sure that Daffodil received all the protection from the communal riots whenever she was outside the home. Amarjit not only fathered Daffodil, he was the first mentor in her life to introduce her to the nature and animals. Daphne, my child, come here and see what I have got for your 4th birthday, dear. Amarjit called his pretty daughter to surprise her. Daffodil came running down the stairs from the first floor, where she was busy playing the board game with her grandparents. Shelley also hurried from the kitchen to join the surprise. Amarjit instructed everyone to follow him to the rear garden of the house, and Daphne jumped with joy when she saw her gift. It was a pair of cute little white rabbits hopping around in a cage. Yay, pet rabbits! I love them so much, Papa. I can tell my school friends that I have received a very special gift on my birthday. Thank you, Papa. And she kissed him on his cheeks. Amarjit taught Daphne how to take care of her pets, how to feed them, how to feed and how to keep them clean and tidy. Daffodil picked up all these lessons like an obedient student. One Sunday afternoon, Daffodil was as usual playing in the backyard with her pet rabbit. She lovingly named them Ricky and Ria. Daffodil had somewhat fair skin, brownish black shoulder-length curly hair, and a petite body. Thus, she could fit herself inside the tiny frame of the cage of the rabbits, which was of the shape of a tunnel. Tiny Ria got her feet stuck inside the mesh of the cage and was unable to move. Daffodil entered the tunnel-shaped cage and got busy to release her pet. While she was there, she could hear horrible commotion inside the house, but neither could she see anything, nor could she understand what was going on. She was only apprehensive that something must have gone wrong, because normally their house was a pretty peaceful place. During that time, a mob of about 100 rioters entered the Singh residence and attacked the family members. Find everyone and finish them. A huge human figure with long clustered hair and thick mustache shouted to command the mob. The extremists ran round with several dangerous weapons to vandalize the house. Look for that Amarjit teacher and his wife first, another man shouted. Daffodil recognized her father's name, and she gradually crawled out of the cage and tiptoed towards the window of the drawing room to peek through. What she witnessed was utterly gruesome and ghastly for a child of 4 to tolerate. The mob hurled Amarjit onto the floor of the hall, kicked and punched him brutally. They took off his turban and chopped off his hair, which was knotted into a bun on top of his head. They also beat him up with huge bamboo sticks, and he was bleeding from every part of his body. When Shelley came screaming to save her husband, she was slapped and punched too. Eventually, after the harsh torture, the rioters repeatedly stabbed Daffodil's father and mother to death and injured her grandmother too. Daffodil was transfixed in horror while watching such dreadful scenes. Suddenly, she was shaken by a deep and loud voice. Where is that girl, the teacher's daughter, Daffodil or something? Daffodil immediately ran for life and hid inside the rabbit's cage again, her little body trembling with fear, her forehead filled with sweat drops. Unfortunately, the mob could not spot her and left the premises, therefore leading to Daffodil's dramatic survival in that horrendous incident. And even Daphne's grandfather survived luckily, as he was in the market to purchase some yarn for his wife, who loved to knit sweaters for her granddaughter. The news of these murders spread like fire within the town via newspapers, radios, and even word. Since Amarjit had a fair rapport with the teachers and students of his school, the school authority reached out to help as much as they could to support the living members of the Singh family. They also arranged for the funerals of Amarjit and Shelley and took the responsibility of the treatment for Amarjit's mother, who was fighting for life in the hospital since she was attacked. They even bore the expenses for Daffodil's further education. The inhumanity across the city was frightening. Friends who would often sip tea together in a local stall in the evenings suddenly became strangers. Killing and looting the Sikhs continued, leaving the peaceful community pained with rage. The local Gurdwara was strewn in blood. The head priest was slashed to death, and his young children were beaten and harassed. The broken window panes of the Gurdwara left a bitter memory of the stone pelting that went on for hours on the holy shrine. Irrespective of the extremism in the society, there were several fearless and brave-heart Hindu neighbors who survived to provide shelters to the Sikh victims in their house, concealing their identities. A similar Hindu family helped Daffodil and her grandfather to become a part of their family. To save his life, grandfather had to give up his turban and cut off his hair. It was extremely agonizing for him to give up his religious identity, but he prayed to his god to forgive him as he was the only legal guardian of Daffodil and had to save her life. Daffodil's grandmother unfortunately died in the hospital while battling for life after attack in her own home. As a child, Daffodil was loved by the families of all communities. There was a spectacular temple of Lord Shiva on the banks of the mighty river Uttarvahini Ganga. Daffodil's grandfather used to sometimes take his traumatized granddaughter to that temple to meet other families, friends, and their children, so that little Daphne could return to her normal life again. She loved to sit on the stairs of the temple and plunge into the breathtaking view of the river. Somehow she found solace amidst the beauty of the Mother Nature and began to recover from her trauma progressively. A Rajput couple, Neil and Leena, visited the temple every Sunday to offer alms to the needy and the poor. Leena often noticed the beautiful little child, Daffodil, sitting on the stairs and watching the Ganges. She inquired about her with the priest in the temple. He narrated to Leena about the trauma Daffodil had been through and that her grandfather brought her to the temple quite often to spend some peaceful time. The Rajput couple was childless and desired for a daughter in their barren life, hence they proposed to adopt Daffodil as their own. Daphne's grandfather did not think twice and agreed to the proposal, considering the couple to be a benevolent, loving, and respected one in the society, and that he was aging. Neil was an established entrepreneur in the city and had offices all over the state. The grandfather had faith that the couple would leave no stone unturned to raise Daffodil happily and provide her with a comfortable life. The family followed all the necessary legal procedures and eventually claimed the little girl to be her own child. At a tender age of 5, Daffodil began the journey of her life with her new parents.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Inside the Minds of Authors. Today we have the amazing Miss Shree that just gave us that incredible reading. Hi, Madame. How are you?
I am good, thank you. And how are you?
I am so well. I am so happy to have you on the
And I'm
show.
so happy that you are having me on the show. Thank you so much.
Let's start. Tell us a little bit about the background of this book. Where did it come from?
Well, Daffodil Blooming Beyond the Season is a story of an ordinary girl who was compelled to lead an extraordinary life right from her childhood. Now, the backdrop is in a state called Bihar in India, and the city is a small town called Bhagalpur. Now, the reason I am reading out some from the story and I'm telling about this book because it has a multi-country story. Daffodil finally ends up in USA, and you will find out if you would like to read the whole book. Now, the background is contrary to the meaning of her name, the flower which blooms in the spring. Daffodil had to brave squalls and struggle in retribution, and happiness came to her life only to obliterate it mercilessly. She witnessed all the darkness like nobody did, but she persistently followed the light at the end of the tunnel. And the tempest could not wither her roots. She surfed through the ebb and flow of her life with robustness and proved her life to be worthwhile. And the story is all about how she survived beyond the season of blooming amidst death, crimes, corruption, prison, and vengeance. Now, this book is broadly categorized as an Asian American drama fiction. Nevertheless, it includes several subgenres, for example, family, nature, sports, protests and movements, hate crimes, militancy, murders, multi country cultures, corruption, politics, animal cruelty, false allegations, prison, sadism, revenge, power, accomplishment, and ultimate liberation of soul. So this book has a lot to offer.
That is definitely a lot in one book. That is
Mm,
absolutely
mhm,
amazing. Like, as you were reading the list, I was like, oh my
mhm.
God. Is this a standalone book or is this part of a
No,
series?
it's a standalone book.
Where did this idea come from? How did you came up with this book?
Basically, the idea was a fruit of all the atrocities that are taking place in the society against women. The women protagonist in the novel, as you can see from the beginning, I mean, she has learned to become tremendously strong from childhood. Eventually, she grows up to a bold woman to stand up against all the crimes she has suffered herself and seen around her. You know, basically, I had an unfathomable support of the women writers around me who has provided me the zeal to pen this story.
That is actually a very powerful story to be
Mhm.
told. Tell us, what age group are you aiming for?
This is a adult story. I mean, I will not bar it from the young adults because it also tells you about the adolescence and everything, but definitely not for children.
Okay. I was taken aback of how quickly the drama
Mhm.
escalated. You know, it is kind of the things that happen in our day. She's having a lovely day, she's playing with a rabbit, and then you have this atrocities
Yes.
taking place. So the way you weave that narrative into everything was very nice. I
Well, thank
appreciated
you
it.
so much.
A little bit about you
Mhm.
now. How long have you been writing for?
Well, I have been writing actually from my childhood when there were opportunities in school for writing for magazines and newsletters. I kept on writing little poems and essays. And I've also seen my mother, who has been a writer and excellent storyteller, and she has inspired me a lot to write. And I was very fascinated by her storytelling talent. You know, we all grew up as a kid by listening to stories rather than, you know, going online and listening to stories on YouTube or something. So, human telling human had a different impact, I think. So, and that led me to, experiment with my pen in schools. And then I gradually wrote for my community short stories, articles for local magazines and newsletters. And gradually, when I consolidated all my short stories into a book in 2015 and published it, then I finally decided that I'm going to do this for the rest of my life.
I love it. So what's the name of that
The
first book
first
you
book
published?
published was Secret Expression, and it has two
Okay.
short stories collected in it.
What was the biggest thing you learned when you were putting this book together?
In every book, I learned something new, to be honest, Miss Gomez. The first book, I really learned the technicalities of writing because before I used to write because I love to write. And I went on writing. I put my heart out on the papers, which I think was very important. But again, to get accepted as a writer, you need to know the technicalities, the culture of writing, the acceptance amongst the readers. And I, being an Indian by birth, naturalized British as a citizen, and now residing in USA, so I have seen a lot in different cultures. Everywhere the writing strategy is different, the expectations among the readers is different, the acceptance of writing style is different. So honestly, I have constantly recreated myself and I'm still doing it. Because I write several genres, I keep on learning the technicalities, how to make that genre lively to the readers.
What other genres are you writing in? Tell us.
In fiction, I have written short stories, thrillers, mysteries, obviously novels like in drama, and this novel consists a lot of subgenres. And I have also written nonfiction and I'm still writing because I come from an IT background. I have worked in e-commerce implementation. I have wrote a lot of IT documents, quality control documents, web contents for various blue chip companies I'm talking about in India and UK. Finally, I have also done professional certificate course from University of Berkeley, California on business writing, which helps me to write more on the web for businesses, for websites, for social media, and all these things.
Definitely have an incredible diverse background, and the way you bringing all your writing together is really incredible. That is amazing. I like the different genres. I like the combination of the
Mhm,
fiction and
mhm.
nonfiction that you bring into it, and how much of your life you're adding into all of this. So tell me, do you have a favorite book?
I do. Again, being an Indian, my favorite book is The God of Small Things, and it's written by Arundhati Roy. She won the Booker's Prize for this book. And I read the book a few years back, actually, a decade back. And that book has inspired me so much that she has detailed every little thing in her life, which actually is written into a story with so much intricacy that, I can actually visualize the whole thing in front of me. That is something which I really like, where you can read and visualize, the narration, the dialogue were extremely good.
Awesome. So do you have any other authors that you admire?
I do. As a child, I used to read a lot of mystery books, detective books. So obviously, Alfred Hitchcock, Sherlock Holmes, and some writers from India too, who wrote some very, very interesting mystery and detective books. But if you say I blindly follow somebody, is again an Indian polymath, Tagore. I'm not sure if you heard about him. He's the first Nobel laureate in literature from the entire Europe, but he's an Indian.
I have not.
Yeah.
I need to look him up. It
Yes,
sounds
so
amazing.
he's a polymath. He is a writer, composer, songwriter, a singer, poet, short story writers, fiction, nonfiction, novels, dramas. I mean, you name anything, you get Tagore in that writing field. And politics, nationalism, nothing is, away from his writing. And that's the reason I try my pen in different kinds of writing, because I don't really like to stick to one genre, because I think exploring and changing gives you more creativity.
I like the blending of the genres that you do and how easily it comes to you. And it's kind of the flavor of life, a little
Mm,
bit of everything makes it so
mm,
much interesting. So
Thank
I
you.
like that. What are you currently working on?
Well, currently I'm actually doing my upcoming novel. Its name is Quandary. It is actually ongoing for a long time. The subtitle of the book is The New Utopia, Quandary, The New Utopia. It is actually taken from a real life story with a punch of fiction in it. Again, the main protagonist is a female character. And from the name, maybe you understand that she faces so much hardship along her life that the hardship and struggles became her new enjoyment. And how much she has learned from those experiences to convert the hardships into positivity.
What advice would you give up and coming writers? What would you tell them?
I would say that definitely do a lot of research, identify the interest, first of all, what actually interests you, and then build your own tribe, talk to them, connect to them, and most importantly, follow your own heart. Never be disheartened with the failures, because we all know failures are pillars of success. So just keep writing. And don't believe in the term called writer's block, because I think there's nothing like that. Because if you are working, for example, I'm working as an IT pro, and if I say I have an IT block today, I will lose my job. You know what I mean? So
That is so true.
so there is no writer's block. Just don't think about it. Just write whatever comes to your heart and mind, and then read and reread and reread and polish it to make attend the benchmark, that so that you can publish it.
So, Madam, tell us, where can our listeners find you?
Okay, I have a website, and it's called and the URL is meandering thoughts with Shree.wordpress.com. If somebody wants to visit it, that will tell all about my work. But my books are available in the link of my author page on Amazon, which is amazon.com/author/Shree number 7. That is SHREE number 7. If somebody goes into that link, they will find all my books, both Kindle and paperback formats. And I would love if somebody reads and leaves some reviews for me over there. That'll be great.
Awesome. Well, Madam, do you have any closing remarks for us? Anything you would like to tell us?
Yes, just stay safe in this environment of COVID-19. It is going to pass. Read a lot, write a lot, help us indie authors to write more, encourage more each other, and leave reviews for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to have you. And for our listeners, thank you so much for joining us inside the minds of authors. Join us next week for another amazing interview.